Mormon Stories Podcast is a production of the Open Stories Foundation. All donations to Mormon Stories are fully tax deductible and go directly towards keeping the podcast alive and towards building a community of support for Mormons like you.
Come, come, ye saints, no toil nor labor fear, but with joy wend your way.
So, up until November of 2015, you probably, from what I remember talking to you about, you were still hoping that maybe you would find that Mormon man and maybe even get married and maybe even have kids and maybe even raise them in the church. And you were still sort of, in many ways, still very much a believer.
Absolutely a believer. I guess you could say I was less active. I hate all of those terms. I think the term Jack Mormon's like ridiculous and offensive, but whatever. I really hate all the nicknames.
The boxes.
Yeah, because it's still like, I don't know. But that goes back to like me like hating labels in general and like wanting to rage against some shit all the time. But absolutely a believer. My testimony, like I would tell anyone, like, no matter how active I am or no matter if I haven't been to a ward in a while, like I want you to know, like my testimony is the fire and my belief has never wavered. I've never questioned that aspect of it. It's just been, my choices have been a result of wanting to survive and trying to be happy with who I am. So yeah, absolutely. I was a believer. I met a guy and ended up in LA, and he wasn't Mormon, and that was a concern of mine at the beginning of that relationship, and that was last year. But he was a great guy. He was a French teacher. He was from France, so he moved here in his 20s. He was like 36. His name is Sebastian, and he was my first real like open relationship boyfriend, and had him meet my parents, had him meet my family, got him integrated into my friend circle, and he came up to here to visit, and took him to Temple Square because he wanted to go, but I wanted to go, and I remember like we were walking around the grounds, and the receiving of the priesthood, the Aaronic and Melchizedek priesthood statues with Joseph, and looking at those, and he's like, "You really believe this?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I do, like yeah." He's like, "Huh," and he was just like, at that point, like, "Huh," because he was raised Catholic, but then like not, kind of like had the I hate religion like gay moment, or it was just like for him, and we sat in front of the Christus for like an hour, and I was like I really felt the spirit. I don't know what he felt, but he had a lot of questions. I remember he got a book, and I was really concerned what book he was reading. But he was like, "No, it's about Mormonism," and this is going back literally like almost last summer, so like not even that long ago. And I was like, "Well, let me look at it," blah, blah, blah. And I realized it was like, I think it was written by either a member, I can't tell you, and I don't even know if you would know it, but it was like a pocket size, like learn about Mormonism. And I glazed over, and I got a sense that it wasn't anti-Mormon material. And so I was like, all right, yeah, read it, get a sense of it, whatever. Like, you should probably read the Book of Mormon, but whatever. And I remember having like very casual discussions, because it was like we were still like, I think it's way too early to be talking about kids early on, but like eventually like we were getting really comfortable with each other and talking about future, and getting into about like 6 or 7 months in a relationship, and like definitely saw a future with him, and he saw a future with me, and it was a matter of just like, okay, eventually I'll move to LA because I need to move there anyway. Like the industry's there, and I'm there so much, like I'm a Californian, I want to move there. And I remember I remember the kids came up and I was like, yeah, like, and marriage equality this last summer had become like legal everywhere. And it was a huge moment. And I definitely felt emotional and was so happy. And then I was like, oh crap, like, does that mean like I can get married now? And I always kind of like liked the idea that like, this is kind of a sick thought, but like I always liked the idea that like it was going to take a little while to get married because I wasn't allowed to get married. So I didn't have to really think about getting married. But then it like was like, oh, I guess I don't have the oppressive hatred in this country to like lean on anymore. So I'm accepted. And I could get married. And I remember telling him something like, yeah, I don't think I want to get married right away per se, but I've definitely always wanted to be a father. And I think eventually, like, I definitely want to have a kid. And we talked about that. And I was like, I remember mentioning, like, I would probably raise my kid Mormon, raise him in the church. Because I was like, you don't really have a religious outlook. And, I do. And that's about how heavy it got. But, like, I bring that up because, like, that was the mindset I was in. I was introducing the church to him in a very light way, but I was making him know that this was an important part. And he was very aware that like, it was an important part of my life. And there was a time where I almost thought about breaking up with him because I didn't know if he was going to get. And I really did. As you said, I wanted to marry someone that at least had the background so that would work because that was important to me. And you hear tales about mixed faith marriages and like how hard it is. And so I was like, I don't know if I can deal with much more challenge right now. Like, and so it's like, it's like a weekend in November. And it was like a big planned weekend for my family because my nephew was turning 8 and getting baptized. And the next day, my brother, his new baby was getting blessed in his ward. And then the next day was my other nephew's first year birthday. So it was like a big family weekend, but it was a big church weekend. And I hadn't been in a church in a few months, like in a church building. But I was like excited. I was like, cool, like great. I was looking forward to it. And that Thursday, I was going to bed, and I have like kind of a routine of like hopping online really quick just to get drowsy, and then like I fall asleep. And I saw someone had posted an article from KSL, and it said new LDS church policy bans same-sex couples and their children, something kind of like salacious like that. But it was the only article that I saw on my Facebook feed, and I feel like I have a healthy dose that I've acquired over the years of like either Mormons that aren't Mormon anymore, like so ex-Mormons, or Mormons that are like questioning, but I also have like a healthy dose of like still like ride or die true believer Mormons. So on my feed, like I always seemed to get like the latest LDS related headline, and if it was a big enough deal, then I would usually see a lot of people chattering. But I only saw one, and I was like, all right, this doesn't seem great, and this doesn't sit well, but I'm gonna go to sleep on this. And then I remember waking up in the morning, getting ready to go over to meet my parents, and I was like, should I bring this up to mom and dad? Like, they probably don't even know. Like, they probably don't even know about this. And I remember opening up Facebook, and it was like this. It had like spread like wildfire overnight. I also remember reading about this John DeLynn character that like had like sort of. Do you take responsibility for leaking it, or?
People shared it with me.
Yeah.
And then I think my sharing amplified it a little bit.
There was some sort of like Vegas media outlet that had written like, quote unquote, John DeLynn, blah, blah, blah. So then I was kind of like, is there any like weight to this? Like, but then I started to really realize like this is real. And then, you see the policy, you see the handbook, and you see like the excerpts, and and it kind of flooded over me. I was like, whoa, okay. Do I even bring this up to my family? How do we deal with this, blah, blah. They might not ever even know about the policy. So maybe it's just something we can write out. And I was anxious because it was a big weekend. So it only, obviously, as everyone knows, it only got more talked about and more controversial from that point. And I went to my family's, and I wasn't going to be the first to bring it up, but my mom brought it up. And she was like, and she was really emotional, and she was like, I just can't, I can't handle that they're calling you an apostate. Like, my son is not an apostate. And I'm hearing these words come out of her mouth, and I'm telling them, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I was like, guys, I'm at a crossroads, because I've done all I can, but I can't take another punch. I'm a happy person finally, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm like they're making it very clear that they don't want me and they don't want my kids, and I know that sounds dramatic, and I was just waiting for someone to say well, no, that's not what they mean. Read it in this slide, and no one could. Everyone was really worked up, and even my dad, who's pretty stoic and doesn't question, and he was even bummed out about it. So I remember that, and then going home, being super nervous, wondering if I should go to the baptism the next day, knowing that everyone is going to have all eyes on me because everyone's aware of the policy and everyone knows that I'm gay. So, it's extended family and all that. And I'm all right, I'm just going to go. And I put on my best nice clothes and put a smile on my face and went. It felt super weird to walk in the building and sat down, and we were in the chapel, and I'm watching my older brother, perform this beautiful ordinance that I feel is sacred and required, and I start to think about how man, I want a family, and I'm not gonna be able to do this, and it was always it's not like I'm naive. I know the church was supporting Prop 8. I know that the church was pretty open that marriage was between man and a woman. But what was so sort of deceiving about everything was that it had genuinely seemed to more than just me that the church was making efforts to make a space for its LGBT members, honestly, and so the policy just felt, it felt insane. It felt like someone was playing a trick, and I'm singing, we're singing that baptism song, that primary song that I love, and I can barely get the words out, and so.
Which one?
I like to look for, but my brother, my younger brother, is kind of sitting next to me, my mom, and I'm singing, and then they can hear me, and I stop singing, and it's all very cinematic. It just feels unreal that the timing of the policy, the fact that the policy exists, the weekend where I'm all surrounded by church and I'm in family, I'm not able to go escape. And so it's just I'm facing all of it. And I remember coming home, we went to lunch, and I remember driving with my mom to lunch afterwards, and she's like, how was that? How did you feel? And I was like, I didn't feel anything. And I'm freaking out, Mom. I didn't, that actually didn't feel good. And I'm really concerned. And she's like, all right, well, I think we, need to, I think you need to, pray. And I think you need to like sort of, sit on this. And in my mind, I'm just like, all right, this doesn't feel right. Because I've never felt this, like, in all my years, no matter what I was doing, I never felt this like feeling of abandonment or this like, I never felt a negative feeling towards the church. So I went home, and I remember going to dinner alone, because I was like, all right, I'm dressed up. I'm gonna go to dinner alone, and something's coming over me, and I'm like, I think I have to like leave. I think I have to leave the church. Like, I think this is what this means. And I'm trying to pay attention to any sort of feeling or prompting. I come home. I have a sincere word of prayer, and it dawns on me that I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life, because I've tried so hard to make this work. It's my whole life's been square peg round hole. Like, everything has always been about me trying to fit into something. And so I know that I'm going to have to, that this policy is sort of like a line in the sand. That's what it feels like at that point. And so I'm like, I need to find out. I need to I can't live with myself knowing that I've been shunned in a way. I can't live with that pain. I have to explore. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look at some anti-Mormon literature. I'm gonna see this other side that I've never, ever, ever looked at. And in fact, been so afraid to look at. And so I go on YouTube and I pull up God Makers, because that was like the hot like anti-Mormon video when I was in high school. I remember like churches in Marietta and Temecula, Calvary Chapel, it was called, would have like screenings of God Makers. I remember Christian friends of mine that would go to those screenings. So like that was like a big video for me, and I was always like really afraid of it. And like I remember watching like 20 minutes of it, and I was like, this is like so stupid, but also kind of just like really like poorly made and pretty dated. And I was like, all right, I can see through this. Like, I'm not gonna get any answers I need. But I remember right next to it is the list of stuff, and I see this video for it's Tanner and Samantha's interview about losing Mormon millennials. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Why did all my friends in my 20s start like leaving the church? Like, what is it about my age? Like, okay. And this is so, like, I'm telling you, this is like all fresh. Like, I had maybe heard of the podcast Mormon Stories, but literally like never ever looked at even the I'm a ex-Mormon videos. Like, just never needed to entertain that, because it was just like, I was, I don't know. Did
you hear about Kate Kelly's excommunication?
No, I mean, I heard about yours. I heard about Kate's. I thought the ordained women thing was weird. I was like, that doesn't make, like, I had a friend of mine that was in one of the photos. Her name's Kenesha. She was in one of the photos giving a blessing. And I was like, she's gone off the rails. She has gone off the deep end. I was like, wow. And she was like
says the rock star.
I know.
With tattoos.
I know. This is what this culture does. I'm not saying that like I think that now, but no, I was just kind of like, okay, like because I think a lot of it had to do with like, look, I can be gay and Mormon and it make it work. Why you're straight? Like, why? Or like,
what do you have to complain about?
I was like, what? Like, why aren't you like, you don't have challenges. So, but that's how selfish it becomes. But anyway, like, yeah, I'd heard of that. I didn't understand it, but it was nothing I explored too. So it was just like, you'd see the billboard or you'd see the Facebook posts about ordained women. You'd see your story, but like, and I had a couple friends that, but again, it goes that would listen to Mormon stories, but it was always like, it comes back to that thing that we've talked about where it's like, why do we glaze over and cut off when an opinion is shared that doesn't have to do with maybe believing or questioning? And I realized like I was doing that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to these kids. Like I had no idea it was going to be about them leaving the church. Cause it's like, it's a 2-part, it's pretty lengthy, John, those podcasts.
Unlike this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. But I was like, okay, I can trust these kids. I was like, first of all, like, they're all BYU kids. I get it. All right. So I was like, cool. They're from a blogosphere. They're going to explain their thoughts on why kids are leaving the church. And then they're going to wrap it up in a nice bow and say like, please don't leave the church. This is why it's true.
Oops.
I know. So the first like 2 hours are like basically just their story, but they're never really hinting about their faith crisis at all. And so I'm kind of getting bored, but I have it on. Now it's legitimately, I was still in the perspective of like, cool, like this is stuff I already know. Like I know the church is true. Like I need some more. And I want some more. No, oh my gosh. So we get to the second part of the interview, and that's when they start to talk. And so then I start really listening, and I'm like, okay. I was like, wait, I've never even heard of Denver Snuffer before. Like, who's this guy? And so I was like, why the hell is he like going, what, Snuffer, right? Like, why, don't, like, obviously the FLDS church, obviously, like, that's wrong. Like, don't do that. And so I'm like, okay, this is getting interesting, edge of my seat vibes. And then I start opening up tabs so I can cross-reference, because like, okay, the whole point of this period right now, this weekend, is to make sure that I know for myself what I believe in. And so I'm Googling and I'm saying, okay, this is true. And then the first big mind blower was the first vision stuff. I was like, and I remember my eyes widening, and I remember cross-referencing again, and I was like, what? Like the thing that like my whole testimony was like everything that I like taught, like everything that shaped my outlook on the gospel was not what I thought it was. Like, huh? He saw a pillar of fire? No, he didn't. Like, oh, wait, no, only Jesus came to visit him? No. Like I was told God the Father and Jesus Christ. Like, that's in the video, that's in the restoration video, that's in the discussions. Like, so that was my first sort of like, okay, there's stuff that I need to check out. I was like, all right. And then it was just like basically following along with Tanner and Samantha's story. And like, so I think for like 5 minutes I was a snufferette. Like I was like, okay, that's actually totally true. Like
back to our roots.
Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, everyone got it wrong. That makes sense. Yeah, Brigham Young was crazy. So it's definitely like Joseph Smith is dope, and that's cool. And I can make that work because like I love Joseph Smith. Like I love that guy. Like he restored the church. He was a martyr. He was awesome. And then I remember what got me, like I think it was the CS letter I mentioned. I think he brought up CS letter, and I was like, CS letter. I brought it up, and it kind of looked like anti-Mormon literature, like the website. If like Jeremy's like listening right now, he needs like some sort of like, I think the Moroni needs to be on there, or like something a little more Mormon.
Smiling families.
Yeah, we need a little like, at least ordained women had like blessings, and like it looked churchy. So I was like, all right, well, this guy's probably just like angry. So it got to the end of their video, and they talk about going, and everything started to click. I was like, yeah, why do we have City Creek? Like, why is there $1 million mall or whatever that the church made? And I was like, it's like, yeah, I'm stoked that I live near a mall, like, and there's a Tivana there, but I don't really understand that element. And I really never really liked polygamy. And okay. And then to realize that there was more to the story, I was like, okay, there's more to the story and I need to investigate. So it's probably like 2 a.m. at this point, and I call. No, this was the next day. So it's 2 a.m. at this point, and I'm like, I'm not tired. I'm pumped. Like, I'm gonna keep studying. So then I come across, there was a video, and I believe Jeremy made the video where 50 things wrong with Mormonism. It was a less menacing title. 50. It was really well done. So you did good on that imagery. But it started to make it really clear. Like, it's basically just like facts from the CS letter, but compiled into like a short video on YouTube. And I was like, these are things that, like, I guess I've always questioned but glazed over and never felt satisfied answers. But it was also like, I definitely believed like I loved the idea that there was more to the story and I would find out later. That made me feel comfort. Cause like I didn't even know I was gay like most of my life. So I was like, all right, there's a lot more that God knows that I don't know. And obviously the brethren know way more than I know. So honestly, like I never felt like the need to question, but these were things that like didn't sit well. And I was like, well, as long as the line's been drawn, and at this point I'm like that wounded kid that's like kind of mad. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to look at this stuff that like everyone told me not to. And I have a firm enough testimony. God's gotten me this far in life. Like I'm not going to all of a sudden find out that these things aren't true. And it just like, it got real crazy. And I ended up on Mormon Think because I think Samantha mentioned Mormon Think and I had that in a tab, and it looked like a bit intellectual, and I was like, huh. But I remember reading about Tom Phillips' second anointing, and I was like, that was another mind blower. I was like, there's a second anointing? I was like, Colin, I should make sure. Wait, I've never heard of this stuff. Like, wait a second. Like, I served a mission. I should know. Like, I should definitely know all this stuff. And then I was like, I gotta know about this. So I pull up his 9-hour Mormon Stories episode. But I'm enthralled now at this point because like, and I don't mean their story was boring, Tanner and Samantha's. It was just like, at that point I was watching it as like full believing, like, okay, you're telling me everything I know. So Tom Phillips' story was like fascinating because here's a man that was so high up in the church and so sincere, and I felt his pain and I sympathized with him, and I was feeling pain, and I was feeling sort of cast out at that moment as well from the policy. And I was really coming to understand in a quick way that there was a whole world of pain and sadness and sorrow in this church that I thought was like beautiful and pure and wonderful. And it made me really sad. It made me feel guilty that I hadn't known about this stuff sooner. It made me feel guilty for not sympathizing with really close friends that I put up a wall between because I thought they had lost their way. And I was like, and I had a really hard time dealing with the idea that here I am, this open-minded, gay, flashy dressing, super open to all sorts of walks of life guy. And I've been so closed off and judgmental my whole life. That sucked to face that. And it also sucked to realize that everything that I taught on my mission had so much more to it that I hadn't taught. And I instantly felt guilty and shame. It's about 4 or 5 a.m. at this point, and I'm like, all right, I have to go to bed, but I have to wake up to go to church for my nephew's baby blessing. And I wake up about 3 hours later, and I'm like exhausted. Obviously,
This is that same weekend?
The whole weekend.
Oh my gosh.
No, that was like a binge. People binge Netflix, and I binge watched Mormon stories or whatever. I really have been. But anyway, I was like, I can't. I texted my brother, and I was like, I can't come. I can't make it this morning, but I'll come over for breakfast after or whatever. And so I went over, and I didn't want to stay very long because I was so excited to get back into study. Like, I was so amped because there was this part of me that was like, I'm about to like discover some real interesting stuff that is gonna not only change my life but my family's life. So I have got, it was almost a thing where it was like the exact opposite. Like on my mission, or like you hear those stories, like you want to race and tell everyone the good news of the gospel. I wanted to race and like know everything I could so that I could get my family on the same page. And obviously I realized it's not that simple. I finally read the CS letter, open it up, and it's a long document, but it didn't. I know I've heard that people think it's like way too long and it should be shortened, but I was just like in a place where I needed to know everything. And I want you to know that I wasn't taking I still was very like I had tabs and tabs and tabs open because I was not going to just take somebody, and it was important to me to watch their interviews and to watch their body language and to hear their voice I remember that weekend feeling completely hopeless and also feeling as if nothing existed. And my producer, Tim, calls, and he calls me, and I'm like bawling my eyes out. I'm like, hello. I was like, oh. And I was like, everything I've been told is a lie. And I probably sound like a complete wacko, but like everything was broken. I was out in space. My whole, like, what was all the struggle my whole life for? Why did I feel all this guilt and shame? And how did I believe in these things? And everything went through my mind like I can't believe I'm 32 years old and I am questioning where I'm coming from, and my whole life I've known where I come from or where I was going, and now I have no idea. And I called my boyfriend Sebastian, and I was like I'm not Mormon anymore. Like, guess what? Like, you don't worry about it. And he got super worried, and he's like, I really want you to take some time with this. Like, I know how important and believing it was. And this is like, you hear about these people that make these sudden life changes, and like, I really want you to be careful. And I was like, you're right. I probably shouldn't look at it. And hung up, and like immediately. I definitely think it was there's an unhealthy aspect to it, and to the speed of which I was finding out information, because I realized looking back at this, it's really only been a few months, this short period of my life, that it's information that like yourself or countless other members have found over a series of years
or decades.
What gave me so much comfort and sadness, instant sadness at the same time, was how recent all this stuff was too. Like, I think another thing with like some of that sort of anti-Mormon literature, or whatever you want to call it, label it as, it seems so old and so like, well, that happened in a different time or whatever. I don't know those people. So, but to see like 2015, like, or, a month ago, an interview, or to read something that was like revealed a couple years ago, and why didn't I know about seer stones, and why didn't I know? Like, it ran the gamut of like of everything that I feel like people that have left the church figure out. But I was finding it out all within like 2 days, 3 days.
Oh, sorry.
So it was a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what'd you do?
The next day I had to see not had to, but it felt like I had to at that point, see my family again, which bummed me out that I was like anxious and sad to see my family, because I was in a very, like, I would say it was a pretty dark time. And I, literally it was all of November, I was writing music, but I was also, it was either I was writing music or I was listening to Mormon stories. I'm not trying to blow up your spot. I tried other podcasts, and it just like, I feel like at that time, and maybe even currently, it's still, I feel like the avenue that I got the best point of view and information, and then could cross-reference and feel like I wasn't getting some sort of like angry or biased or slant view. And I don't, that's just sincerely what I would get from that. So like, I just ate it up. I loved it. I went out and bought scriptures. The first time I was,
Scriptures.
I bought scriptures because I needed to look up stuff. I kind of got like, to be honest, I became a Mormon fanboy again because it became enthralling and exciting. And I started to realize there's so much that I could use artistically from this experience. But it's probably not, that happened. And then I discovered that my boyfriend had been cheating on me. So so it was like faith 2 weeks later, like, so God's left me in the dark. Ex-boyfriend now has left me in the dark. What the hell is real? What is the point of any of this? I hate everything. I remember a few days of drinking too much, and then realizing, no, this is not, I can't be living like this. Like, but I was so sad and so bummed out, and I was like, it's like this again, like I've worked so hard, this again. And all I wanted to do was like talk to somebody, and I had no one to talk to. Anytime I would bring it up, most of the time I was scared to bring it up because it went back to that guilt of like, am I going to be responsible for leading my family out of the church? And there was an aspect of like, I need to be responsible for leading them out of the church because it's not true. And I don't care that like it's a good institution, and I don't care that like it was a conduit to Christ. It's like, there was a thought, I was like, this has brainwashed us and made me unhappy and made me feel like I had challenges to overcome that I really didn't need to overcome, that I just needed to like be me. And it questioned everything. I questioned what was the Spirit? Why did I feel the Spirit so much in all of these things that I'm told are wrong? Why did I feel the Spirit talking about my mission at Equality Utah which was like a month before the policy came out, and like, why did I feel reverence and feel at peace with all of this that I'm told now is not only like wrong, but like as wrong as like being an apostate, like as wrong as that, like in that category. And not only that, but like my kids don't really have a shot until they decide they want to or whatever, like it's, and plenty of people have talked about the policy, but that's, that was the thing that blew the door open. Excuse me. That was like, the policy was the thing that blew the door open to discovering all of these untruths within a church that I thought I knew everything about. And what bummed me out was there were so many materials readily available to me that I wasn't told to look at. Like there were essays, and granted, maybe it was, I tried to chalk it up like maybe it was that I wasn't so like going to church every Sunday. So maybe I missed the lesson when they talked about seer stones or the hat, or, you know, but it's literally like that feeling of just the rug has been pulled from under you. And that is it's a terrible feeling because it shaped my entire view of everything. And I made it I made it such an effort to make it work my whole life. And that sucks. So now I'm in this spot. Well,
and there's two things about that. One, I'm thinking about how happy you would finally become.
yeah.
Like you're at this place where you're like really feeling integrated, feeling whole, feeling out, feeling authentic, and feeling very Mormon.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of feel bad.
Feeling
like,
Mormon to the point. Like, I think some people from the outside would be like, oh, maybe he's here we go with labeling him, maybe he's a cafeteria Mormon. I remember hearing that even as recent as a few months ago. It's like, I think what you're doing is cafeteria Mormonism. And I was like, looking back, maybe that's what it was. But like, I was in a mindset where I believed the tenets of the church, the way that I was taught growing up in the church, the way I taught on my mission was you have to have a belief in Jesus Christ. You have to believe in the atonement. You have to believe in the restoration. You have to believe that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God. All those things. So and I believed all those things. So like I was making it work. Yeah, I was a gay Mormon. It was fine.
And the other part that is just more macro level that kind of sucks is that to this day, I still feel like so much good has come from the church. Like Provo and the music scene and Imagine Dragons and you guys and BYU and a million mission experiences and happy families. And like, it's still to this day, I don't understand all the happiness and joy that's come out of this thing that now kind of looks like it was made up.
Well, to be on the other side, I've had really happy experiences even a couple weeks ago with friends and talking about life in it without the lens of religion or spirituality, and I could have sworn to you I felt the Spirit. And I also probably one of my top 5 mind expanding conversations. And there were no drinks or drugs involved. Like literally, it was just like communing with friends about, and it was like I felt fed, So like I've been thinking about that. I think it goes back to the my mom had us do vacation Bible school at another church one summer when I was like young with friends that weren't of the LDS faith. But I remember feeling the Spirit there. And I remember learning of Christ, and that it didn't go into deep doctrine. It was a kids Bible school, so it was like pretty nursery level stuff. But it was like I remember feeling good about that. I remember feeling good at my friend's wedding that got married in the Catholic Church, and feeling that they were brought together. And so I think it goes to the idea that there are great things in like all sorts of organizations, and I'm at a healthier place right now where like I said, I'm kind of a fanboy of the church again in a way where it's so fascinating. I kind of want to shake a little bit of that, but I don't know, like I went to Deseret Book a couple weeks ago, and like I was like, oh, cool, this is fun. Like I bought some art and painted on it. I don't know. I think I'm at a point where I'm not mad at my background. There's a lot that I'm really sad about that I feel like definitely discouraged from. And I definitely feel like there was what was all some of that pain for. but I also don't have a lot of regret. And now it's like, what do I do with this part of my life, and what do I turn that into, and that's exciting and weird. But my family are all active. My mother, about 5-6 weeks ago, told the family that she was going to stop going on Sundays. And she was very expressive in the idea that she's like, I'm not drinking coffee all of a sudden. I'm not taking my garments off. I'm actually reading the scriptures and listening to talks. And she's sort of listening to podcasts, but like super safe ones. So that's fine. But what I bring that up is like, she's being very sincere the way I feel like I was sincere a few months ago when I was faced with an idea of like, what am I going to do with this information about this policy? What do I do? She's exploring that. My dad is way more vocal than he used to be because he doesn't agree with the policy. I don't feel like my family all agree with it, but they're all at varying stages and they're still super active, I feel. And that's been a bummer because I feel a wall has been put up in my family that I thought coming out would be like the last wall. And it's almost coming out as leaving the church, or whatever you want to label that as, is almost scarier in a way. I don't know. It's almost deeper. It almost cuts deeper. And it makes me sad. Like I look up to my dad so much. I look up to my parents so much, and that's hard for me to know. But at the same time, to know that like something that like my parents brought us in. But at the same time, like I don't know. Like I don't know where I'm at. I'm sort of here right now. I don't know what the future looks like. But I don't know if it's going to be me sending a letter. I don't know what it's going to be. But
to what extent are you comfortable talking about where you are with the traditional Mormon beliefs? Do you want to talk about that? Do you?
Sure. Like, what do you mean?
Like just go down the temple recommend kind of questions. Like,
you want to give me
God, no. Do you want to talk about that? Like,
sure.
That was one of the big questions. Where does he stand now with his beliefs? Or do you even know? Is it too early?
Right now, like maybe a few weeks from now when this interview's put out or whatever, it could change because I'm evolving and I'm just continuing to study. Right now, I don't believe the church is true. I don't believe Joseph Smith had any of his visions, 9, 4, 1. Like I sincerely don't. As I feel as much of that belief as I did when I did believe in it. So
same level of certainty.
Same level of certainty.
What if somebody says,
but almost more so because I feel like I have like time. I have can we call it a century of history to look at? I don't know, valid sources, like, way more than just the Book of Mormon, so, do I believe there's good things in the Bible and Book of Mormon? Yeah, absolutely. I think there's good things. I don't believe the Book of Mormon is divine.
What if somebody says, "Oh, but how do you explain the book? How do you explain it? It's such an amazing book."
Being a boy with such imagination, and having Joseph Smith kind of be he was my favorite he was my hero in a way. I looked to him as a hero. So I can sort of get into the mindset of like being imaginative. I wrote so many like short stories and scripts and things, and so I can get into that mind space or that mind frame where it's very blatant that he borrowed from the Bible that he had in his house, and he borrowed from local literature, and from down to like all of the changes and the punctuation mistakes and the things included in the book that didn't exist at the time, and
like horses and steel and all that.
Sure, but like beyond that, just the fact of like he wasn't that great of a guy, and I believed God chose him as a prophet. And yes, he's just a man, but like I don't feel like God would give the most important book on the earth to someone as kind of not great as Joseph Smith.
You're talking about the
really
polygamy
was.
or what?
Polygamy, like polyandry, like down to like the hypocrisy with Word of Wisdom. The fact that he was kind of like, I didn't love that he like made himself a general. Like to remove the lens of like he only did 2 bad things in his life and he was a martyr. Like when you really go and like, okay, well, he's not like...
What were the 2 bad things?
Like when he lost the pages,
right.
And like when he was like mean to Emma one night.
Okay.
You know, like that's like the 2 stories you hear though. And it's like no, like, and I'm not saying like, but I thought we're taught to revere him almost as a perfect...
Next to Jesus, right?
Next to Christ. Almost sometimes scary in some, I would venture to say in some ward meetings, more important than Christ. I'm not, like, those are my words, not the church's, but, you know, there were definitely times I'd go on, to meetings where I'd heard Joseph Smith's name more than Christ's name. That always bugged me, but, like, they were little enough issues that, like, I never had to focus on those. But, I definitely don't believe that Thomas S. Monson's a prophet because I mean, not to be a jerk, but he's dying. Like, he's not, like, I just don't think he's even, like, I feel like there's not, I don't feel like he's receiving divine. Maybe I'll retract that because I don't want to seem like a jerk. I don't want to be offensive to people that love him I think he's great. Like I think he's a great speaker, but I just don't, it's very easy to like look at it now and just see like they're trying to make an organization run to the best of their abilities. And do I think they're evil or no, they're not. I don't feel like the church is evil. I just feel like it's a system that like probably wasn't made for our time. And it's gotten way bigger than it needed to, and now it's out of control. But now it's like so big that it's like there's a lot of like untruths and a lot of problems with protecting its members, and you know, it's gotten a little out of hand.
How do you make sense of the policy?
Oh, that. Well, that, like, I don't make sense of. Like, I only make sense of it on the, like, I've heard the loving side, like, we're doing it to protect, but that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, if you want to go as far as say there's Jesus Christ, there's no God in that policy. There's no divine, loving Heavenly Father in that policy. I don't care. Like, I know I'm just a guy, and I know that I don't know anything, and I have a lot to learn, and we all do. But like, if what the church taught me of the nature of God and that He's a loving Heavenly Father, and what I felt the relationship I had with God, and what I had worked so hard on to receive and to get to with God, I don't feel like He would backhand me or us in that way. I just don't.
And then to have them reaffirm in January that it's doctrine.
That was also sort of the nail in the coffin for my mother. Because the problem was she was told in a sort of assembled rescue. I don't know if it was totally a rescue, but it was, you know, a general authority had come to to the Murrieta stake, and they were asked to come, and a lot of parents and family members of LGBT kids that had a lot of questions, and they were told from that general authority, the name escapes me, but my mom can tell me, but that it was, just a policy. It's not of God. It's not doctrine. It's just something for our time. And there's so many things yet to be revealed, instantly. And I think probably a lot of people thought this, but instantly, without a question, the minute I read that policy and digested it, like the articles of faith came into my mind, especially that man should be punished for their own sins and not for his transgression. Like that immediately, it was like, all right, something's off here, because that doesn't make sense.
With the children.
Right. So I don't necessarily make sense of the policy, and definitely don't with it coming out as doctrine. But I always thought like, okay, if this is God's church, and this is the Church of Jesus Christ restored to the earth, and he's like, most of my teenage years and kid years and on my mission, I thought when they called me to Nebraska that they specifically God knew I needed to go to Nebraska, and forever thought that. And when you sort of realize that that's kind of impossible, that they can just pray and talk to God about every person and about everything. And then when you realize they're actually not, they've come out and said they don't actually see God. They don't, but you're kind of brought up to believe that they've been around the Savior. They've been around God. And that sort of just that pulling that veil up a little bit, just it's made it very okay, this is absolutely a man-made church. I don't think it's evil, but I think it just it's not a church for this time, and people, I think it's a church for some people, but
talking about there's been a lot of concern or controversy around talking about the suicides since the policy was released, especially around not wanting to. There are going to be LGBT Mormons who want to stay, and you want to have, my friend Kendall reminds me that we want to have everyone feel empowered, and we want everyone to feel hopeful.
I do too.
And when you talk too starkly about, hopelessness or lack of options, and the fact that just suicide itself can sometimes be copied or can become its own self-fulfilling prophecy, we have to be really sensitive about how we talk about it.
Yeah.
So given that disclaimer, what are your thoughts or feelings about that? Does that make it a whole different ballgame for you in terms of the stakes? Is that kind of new to you, or?
It's new. The stakes are high. That in that regard, that kind of was becoming my, if anything about my career was becoming political, that's what it was. And I felt like I was making it work. I was being a good example. I felt like, to this day, which makes me so sad, I continue to get messages thank you for being an example to my LDS queer kid, or, that's a vague whatever, but those are examples of letters I get, and that to me, I don't know what to do with that, because it's all I could say is, I guess, you have to really, please don't take my word for it, sincerely discover and really look at everything. I don't know what it looks like right now. I don't know. It's really, no one needs to be dying. And I hate the idea that we have to wait till Judgment Day to find out that that policy was awful. I hate that idea.
What did many people asked, what advice do you have for a young in the closet LGBT Mormon or an out of the closet LGBT post-Mormon? What advice do you have in just a few minutes, right? What would you say to them?
Wow. I as dark as like the last couple months have been, and unexpected and sort of mind expanding, I have come to a place of real happiness again, but happiness that I didn't even know after coming out. And I feel absolute joy and relief at the idea that I'm living now, and that the world is so big and I have so much to discover about my friends and about my family and about my actual purpose for life. And so as scary as it is, like personally, I felt so excited and happy very recently, but like as far as like dealing with family members, and that's tough, man. I don't know how to speak to anyone's specific situation, because I'll go back to like, I think it's important to come out of the closet, but I also think there's timing involved, and everyone's situation is different, and make sure that you're around a safe space. And like, a lot of people have opinions on me coming out so late. But I look at it as like, I don't think I could have come out at any other time. So I think a lot of it has to do with like, I know it sounds so vague, but just like really, really, really getting to know yourself, and like what makes you tick and what you want to do with your life, because it's absolutely yours to live. I don't know, was that all too vague?
I think that's the message.
Yeah.
Feel free to get to know who you really are.
Yeah, I'm definitely not asking anyone to leave the church tomorrow, but I'm just expressing that I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie and say I continue to believe in something I just don't anymore. And it's not, I would say the policy was the gateway, but it's not because I'm some like jilted dude. I really hope that people get that message, that I tried to make it work for so long, and I don't deem it as a failure, because I realize a lot of the stuff that I was trying to make work just doesn't really matter, to be honest. What matters is like health, like good health, and having loving relationships with people, and making choices that take you to the next phase in your life, and progress, and true happiness. And yeah, that's my testimony, I guess.
When they talk about not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, about retaining the good things of Mormonism, what are you going to retain? What do you hope to retain at this point?
I hope to retain a closeness to my family. I hope that doesn't change. I hope to retain the idea of community. I've realized in this last few months, like discovering that there are people out there that feel the way I do and believe in these things as well, and also aren't maybe like angry or mad, but just like are seeking true happiness, that I hope to find that sense of community again. I think that's been a really exciting thing to like discover. I really loved going to church I really like, you know, and I don't think it's in a religion, but it's like I'm doing things that I've always wanted to do, like, and finding, like, I love to cook, so I'm going to like cooking classes in my off time. I want to start dancing again, so I'm gonna go I've been going to some of those experiences, and like, I think I want to take home, you know, I want to take home like the idea that we don't know everything. I liked that the church said that. I think looking at it in a different way, sometimes maybe the church says that to keep you on the straight and narrow. But I do like that idea of hope, and I do like that idea of there's a lot out there that we don't know, and I want to. So maybe a month ago I was an atheist. Now I feel like I am really open to possibility and discovering things, you know, spiritually speaking, and like I think, like I said, I feel like I feel like a spiritual rebirth in a sense. I'm really excited and open to like discovering what the whole point of this thing is. So
it may be a closeted gay or lesbian kid who's thinking about whether life's worth living. It could be someone who's had a faith crisis who is trying to decide what to do about it. It could be someone who's never been Mormon, and they're just wondering what the point of it all is, and can I go through something really dark, and can I even go through something as significant as losing my faith or coming out and still have it be hopeful and worth it on the other side? What would you say to those people?
Do
you wish you could go back?
No, I don't. I can only speak to how I feel and what I've learned in the last, probably the last 10 years of my life. I really encourage you to stop compartmentalizing and hiding, because it will catch up with you, and it's going to come out in other ways, and sometimes it comes out in ways that are worse than we can even control. I feel like life is so rad and exciting and cool, and there's so many great people to become friends and to connect with. I feel like there's so many books to read and movies to watch and records to listen to and food to taste and experiences to have, and that is what you have to make it to. Like, and maybe it's not tomorrow or next month, but it's totally worth the darkness for sure. Cause you know, on a very you know, human level, I felt a lot of darkness, mentally and emotionally, but it's an awesome ride, and it's the coolest thing to like live past a certain age that you thought you'd only make it to, and to look back and be like, whoa, like I've learned stuff and I'm actually a better person. And that's way more fulfilling than anything else I've ever done. Like, I don't know, like it's so important to me to live authentically and happy, and that's been more fulfilling than even like, and I thought I never said this, but like than performing or having a hit record. Like, that's something I want to continue to do. It's my passion. I love it. But like living authentic and happy is like so awesome and so cool and exciting. And I think if you can however long that period is where you have to get wade through some of this muck and this darkness, like it's rad, and you will come out on the other side. You you just will. I know it's like easy for me to say that, but it take it from me. I hope you know that there's a lot of cool stuff on the other side.
At first, this is going to sound like a bit of a negative question, but I actually mean it as a question of hope. So I'm priming you, but someone could say to you, you've betrayed your parents. Mm-hmm. You've betrayed your believing fellow band members. You've betrayed your people. You've betrayed your heritage. But I don't get a sense that that's what this is about. How would you respond to that sort of claim that this is a betrayal?
Watch my 6-hour Mormon Stories episode. No, I don't know. I don't know. I would hope that.
Are there Mormon values that are driving what you're doing right now?
Probably, yeah. I think I think as far as living your purpose and and spreading truth, I think this is part of it. You know what I mean? I've been writing a lot of music, and it's going to turn into a record, and it's probably going to be very pointed, and I want to talk about my experience in an authentic way, and I love that I love that I'm able to turn this pain into art, and I think anyone can find a way to turn pain into something beautiful. And for me, that's going to be this process. And, but that's the future. I have no idea what that looks like, so maybe I don't have the answer to that question. I know, look at me in the eyes and know that I'm not betraying, because my mother and my father are, if anyone's Mormon and believers, it's them. And to watch them in their 60s struggle completely based on their love for their son, seeing them, I can only hope that if there is a God, that the love that he has for me is the same love that they have for me. So I feel scared because I don't know. You never know the outcome, and you don't know what people are going to do or how people are going to react, but I feel a lot of warmth too, and I feel a lot of good. So take my word for it right now that I know I'm doing what's right. I really do. And I hope you find out soon too for yourself.
Well, I feel just so much love motivating you, and so much sincerity.
Cool. I'm glad.
And it's hard to argue how sincere you've tried to make this work. And
yeah.
And I have a small sense for some of the stuff you're working on, and I love the hope and the optimism. You seem to just be inextricably tied to kind of positivity, and
yeah.
And you may be talking about hard things, but I just don't get the sense that your energy is going to be anything but uplifting and positive.
I hope so. I sincerely feel like that's what runs through me, and I don't have a lot of room for negativity. And you have your days, but I really can't. I don't have room, and I've seen too much of what negativity, and I think I naturally can go there really easily. So for me, it's just I crave positivity and turning darkness into light,
into art,
into art. Yeah. It's and that is something I feel so blessed, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if that word applies anymore, but I do feel super happy and privileged to have an opportunity I know, I understand not everyone has the ability or the opportunities to write music in an expressive way or to write music at all. So again, that's the one thing where it's like, okay, maybe there is something out there guiding something, because like I can't ignore some of this like stuff. So that, you know, but I do feel good knowing that there's possibility, unless someone's telling me what it is and then finding out that that's not exactly what it is. So, yeah.
Without saying anything else, I'll just say 2016 looks to be an exciting year for Tyler Glenn and music.
Yeah, so. It's fun.
So stay tuned. Is that okay to say?
Sure, man. Hey, thank you.
Stay tuned in the months ahead.
For the support.
Tyler, thank you for your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That was cool. I have no idea what it sounded like, but it
was beautiful.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for coming on Mormon Stories.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And listeners, just really quick, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking with us. All those who donate to Mormon Stories, you make this possible, and I can't thank all of you enough for your support. Please check us out at mormonstories.org. Please put your comments there, only kind ones, only thoughtful ones, supportive ones, but we'd love to carry the conversation on there. And we just want to thank everyone for their support. And
be positive.
Be positive. I'll take that as well. But thank you, and Tyler Glenn, take care, and we hope to see you again.
I hope so too.
On Mormon Stories at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Down. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on Mormon Stories Podcast. To discuss this podcast with others, please check us out at mormonstories.org. To join one of our 80-plus support communities across the globe, click on the Support Communities tab at mormonstories.org. To keep this podcast alive, please consider a tax-deductible donation today by becoming a monthly subscriber at mormonstories.org. Audio and video for this podcast were provided by Richard Holdman. A big thanks to the Saber Rattlers for providing the music for today's episode. The Mormon Stories logo was generously donated by StudioCase.com.
Come, ye saints, no toil nor labor fear, but with joy